Right guys, I've filmed the start of me trying to fit this first gear selector shaft and the brass casting bit, and I'll probably put a bit of that in, but I kind of gave up after about 20 odd minutes of filming and lots of expletives, so I shut the camera off while I figured out how I was going to do it, and we've got there in the end. So I don't know if you can see the gear shafts on there, but that is now, I don't think you'll be able to see them actually, but that's, you know, that's now working as it should, selecting the gears up and down. So I've got that side done. For anybody else who's doing one of these that's similar, the mistake I was making was when I put this second shaft back in, I'd got the gears in their lowest position, and I was fiddling around like an idiot trying to fit the brass piece and the arm right down in the bottom. And then it suddenly occurred to me that actually if I lift those gears up to the top position, it's, you know, I can see what I'm doing better and I can get better access to it. It's all a bit fiddly. It's a case of putting it in, getting it roughly in position, sliding the shaft through, and then taking the grub screw out of the casting. I'll show you on the other one, just bear with me. So taking the cap head out of the casting and actually looking through the hole until you can see you've got the dimple in the shaft lined up with the screw, and then at that point you can then tighten the screw up. It's quite a fiddly operation. The brass piece drops off many times into the bottom of the sump, and you've got to try and fish it back out again. But you know, we've got it done, and that's the most difficult one. Famous last words. So I'm now going to try the other one, and again, unfortunately because of my camera position, you're not going to see anything other than my hands and me fishing about and doing what I'm doing. So I'll cut the camera, I'll fit it, and then if I've had any kind of difficulties with it or anything that I think's worthy of note for somebody else that might be helpful, I'll just do a small piece like this afterwards explaining what I did and how I did it. Okay, so that's got the high and low shaft done, and that's all gone. That's all gone okay. So you can see that moving. They're a little bit stiff because it's the, I suppose because it's new, the detent, there's like a ball, a spring-loaded ball that's a detent on the shaft in the 2 positions, and obviously in 3 positions on shaft number 2, and they are a little bit stiff. I guess, you know, I've not really moved them around much since it was brand new. They will bed in over time and become a little bit looser. So that's got all of that back together. Fairly happy with it. So I think the next job now, I'm just going to apply some grease to the spline shaft, and then we're going to fit shaft number 4, which is the stub shaft, which is the final drive shaft for the spindle. So I've just got some grease. I'm just going to apply some grease up and down the spline here, and then we'll fit the final drive shaft, which obviously drives off this spline. Don't want to go too mad with this because if you get too much on it, it'll just all be squashing out everywhere on the top of the machine, the top where the drawbar is. So just a light coating will be sufficient. There we go. I'm just going to get the 4th shaft, which has all been cleaned up, and hopefully hopefully hopefully. Oh dear. It's fouling on that bearing on the top of shaft number 3, but only just, and I mean only just. I'm wondering if I can yeah, it's like bloody Tetris, this thing. I think I can get that gear past there with a bit of help. I'll just try it. I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it. Well, I'm going to try it. If I can get, that's the best way of me getting on this. You need to be let's try that. I'm just going to put a drop a bolt in there. Oh, everyone's a winner. I had it in my mind for a minute that that was going to be a bit of a nightmare. It's an interesting noise. Which has now gone away. Surely that can't be right. Right, I'm back, guys. I don't think, well, I'm hoping that this isn't a problem. I've put this spacer back on. So this spacer sits between this top bearing on this stub shaft, and then there's another one of these bearings, absolutely identical, that sits on top of this spacer. And basically there's a circlip that sits in this circlip groove here. Now, with the thickness of that other bearing and this spacer, I think that circlip is what's used to control the height of this stub shaft, so it's in the right axial position on the shaft. It's not going to need to be lifted by very much. It's only just touching, so it's the underside of this gear here that's actually rubbing on the top side of this gear here when this is in the highest position. Now there was no noise from the mill before that suggested that that was happening, so, and there's no evidence of that when I look at the top of this gear. So I think this is controlled by that circlip position, and it's just the fact that it's not built into the head at the minute, into the top casting, that it's just, obviously there's nothing to retain it, so it's just dropping down until it hits that gear. I thought I'd got a big problem there. I thought I'd done something seriously wrong, but I don't think I have. And the only way we're going to know is to fit the top and find out. So I think I'm going to leave this as it is. I think it's ready to go. So I'm going to go back to the bench now, and I'm going to fit all of the circlips back into the top casting that need to be fitted. We'll insert the top bearing for where this shaft goes as well, tie it up against the circlip that's in the casting, and then we're kind of ready then at that point for the final fit. When we bring that casting over, put it on here, we put some gasket seal on, and we see if we can get the whole thing back together. I think it's okay, but like I say, there's only one way we're going to find out. So I'll bring you back at the bench when we're just putting the last final bits onto the top casting, and then we're almost there, I think. Right, I've refitted all of the circlips into the bores in the head, and I've just got this final bearing to fit. And I'm hoping this is the one that, once the circlip is sat on top of it, on where the spindle comes through here, will be holding that stub shaft in place so that it's not fouling on the next shaft along. So we'll just give that a quick clean, as with all the others. Light coating of oil. All over, and then so that's that all the way down to the circlip. Nice. So, I think we're kind of ready to go for the final fit. I think what I'm going to do is there's these two dowels that fit to the there's two dowel holes in here that actually dowel this top piece to the casting below. I'm in two minds at the minute whether to put these dowels, fit them fully into the base casting, and then we lower the top casting down onto the dowels and we line the shafts up as we go down, because what that will do is force the top casting to be in the right position. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to do that. I think that will be more controlled doing it that way. I'll have a think about that. I'll bring you back at the machine, but I'm just going to give this a final clean up now. Just make sure all the surfaces are clean. I'm going to degrease the mating surface, and I shall degrease the mating surface on the other side. We'll put some gasket sealer on, insert these two dowels, and then we're ready for final fit. So I'll do all of that off camera. I might show the gasket sealer application on camera just in case nobody's seen that, or they might get benefit from it, or I might make a complete mess of it. Either way, it'll be entertaining. So I'll do that, and then we'll try the final fit. Alright then guys, this is it, the moment of truth. I've fitted the two dowels, as you'll see, to the head, and I've degreased the surface, both surfaces, top and bottom, and I think we're ready to go for the final fit, so we'll see what happens. So I've got this, which is Pro Seal Instant Gasket Cleaner. It's an American brand. It's suitable for temperatures well in excess both ends of the spectrum of what it will see in here, and also oil resistant and various other things. So I've read the instructions. It says apply to one surface, which is good. Circle all bolt holes, which we'll try and do, and it tells you to put a bead of between a 1/16 of an inch and a 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go for, I've cut the end of the pipe at about sort of 3mm, which is kind of an 1/8 of an inch. So here we go. So we'll start by circling the bolt holes, and then I'm just going to connect with a bead. I'm going to go right in the middle of the casting. We'll circle the dowel holes the same. There we go. I think that's to the instructions. I'll just put the cap on this. Okay. Here we go. I'm hoping that it's going to rest on those two dowels long before my fingers get in all the silicone. Now the thing is, I really can't see just give myself something to stand on. Everything looks fairly well aligned. Right, and within, all the bearings are in there now and located. So what I'm going to do now is use the I think not quite. Should be enough there now. Yep, just. That went well. Well, this top bearing's coming out. Right, I think that's it. What it tells you to do now is wait for an hour. It says don't over tighten, so I've given them a nip. I've not really torqued right hard down on them, so I'm going to leave that now for an hour, and then we'll come back, and then it tells you to give them a final tweak. So obviously as this sets there'll be an element of contraction potentially, so we'll leave that for an hour and we'll come back and we'll give those a final tweak, and then hopefully that is pretty much the job done, certainly in terms of the hard bit. The rest of it's just motor fitting and this front plate to go back on and the height indicator. So I'll bring you back when we get to that bit, but so far so good. Alright guys, final thing. I realised once I got it all on, just after I shut the camera off, I looked at this stub shaft here that sits on the spline, and I suddenly remembered that the issue that I'd had fitting this that shaft, and it was rubbing on, the two gears were rubbing together, and I said when I lift, when I put the circlip in here, it will lift that stub shaft up so that those two gears don't rub, and I'd clearly completely forgotten about all of that as I put the top on. And this stub shaft was actually down below the top of the bearing because it was sat on top of the other gear on the other shaft inside. I've got so lucky with this, you wouldn't believe it. So what I did was I used this gear lever to basically do that a few times, and what that did was lifted that second shaft up underneath the gear on that stub shaft, and it's just lifted that stub shaft up. The bearing came with it because it's not the tightest of fits in here. So what I did was left this in the upright position, and then I just tapped the bearing back down with a brass drift, and fortunately the stub shaft didn't go with it, it stayed up, and that enabled me to get the circlip on. So I've got really lucky with that, because if that hadn't have happened I would have had to strip all of that back off, clean all the silicone off, take that stub shaft out, fit it to the top cap, and then have another go at refitting everything. So I've got really lucky. So for anyone else who's doing one of these, majorly important is you fit that stub shaft to the top cap, fit the circlip, fit both bearings, and then that stub shaft will need to be as part of the top cap as you drop the top cap onto everything else. But apart from that, everything else went okay. So I'm chuffed with that. What I need to do now, I've got to fit, there's a dust cover cap that needs to go in here around the motors, around the primary drive shaft before I refit the motor, and then there's just two plastic caps that fit in here over those two bearings just to stop any dust and stuff dropping in. So I just need to knock those three caps back in. Then the next job is fit the motor back in and wire it, and by the time I've done that it'll be about an hour then since I did the silicone, and I'll be able to go back and give those 6 cap screws a final tweak, and then really all that's left to do then is I've got to pop these two front handles back off, refit the front plate. No, before I do that I need to refit the bracket on the bottom of the spindle that's got the shaft in here with the depth marking on it. So I need to do that first, then refit the front plate, and that is it, other than filling it with oil. Now I don't know whether the oil I've got here is the right oil. It's calling out for L-AN32, which I think in the UK we would class as AWS32. I'll just need to see what oils that I've got here. If I haven't got any, I'll need to order some in, so I can fill it with oil, and then we're pretty much, other than a really good tidy up, because it's like an absolute bomb site in here at the minute. The bench is disgusting. I've never let a bench get that messy in all my life. So we're going to have a really good thorough tidy up, get all the tools put back away, and I'll bring you back when we're probably ready to power up for the first time and see what happens. Well, we're pretty much there, guys. Cheers. That's been a bit of a effort today, as getting all that done. But that whole sort of reassembly, starting from scratch, pressing the bearings onto the shafts, fitting them all into the head in the wrong place, taking them out, putting them in, taking them out, putting them in, and the various iterations that we've had, learning what the right order is, getting the head on, motor on, all of that has taken 2 or 3 hours. So if you knew what you were doing, you could probably do it in a couple of hours, I would think, start to finish. So not too bad. I've got everything done bar putting the front plate on here. I've refitted the spindle clamp with the height adjustment thing on it, so that's all done. I just need to refit the front plate now. I can't do that tonight. I need to let this silicone that's squeezed out the sides fully cure, so that then I can come in tomorrow with a sharp knife and just trim that off, and then I'll be able to refit the front plate, because it comes right up to this joint line. So that's it. It's ready to go, and everything turns as it should. There's no horrible noises, which is nice. It's very stiff. It always was tight, even when it came in the lowest gear, which it's in at the minute. It was tight. So, but it's nice, it's smooth, there's no nasty noises. That's just the backlash in the gears, which is, you need that in there. It's the same as the gears in a lathe. But yeah, I'm happy with that. It all feels very smooth, very nice. So I think we'll call that a successful afternoon's work. So we'll stop the video here, and I'll bring you back when we've got the final plate on the front. I've just got to rewire the motor in, which is a 5-minute job. Oh, while I'm talking about that, for anybody else that's doing one of these, this is really important. Where's my Phillips screwdriver gone? What have I done with that? Bear with me a minute. This one will do. When your 4 wires come in, you've obviously got your 3 phases that go onto the 3 connectors there, and then your 4th wire that comes in is your earth. When I disconnected that the first time, I don't know whether you can see, you won't be able to see unless I take this out completely. Let me just take that out. That face in there that your wire sits onto, this face here where the hole is, there was 1/4 of an inch of black paint on that. Well, 1/4 of an inch, that's probably an exaggeration, but there was at least a millimetre and a half of black paint on that face, and then you attach your earth wire to it. There is no way, I was going to say on earth, there is no way that would be making an earth connection with the motor. So if you're looking at one of these, just do what I've done there. I've taken the paint off, and I've just, rubbed that surface up with a bit of emery so that it's metal to metal contact, because there is absolutely no way that would have been making an earth contact before through a millimetre of paint. That's something worth having a look at. So yeah, I think we're in good shape. I'll bring you back when we're just putting the final bits together, putting the oil in and switching on.